Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jonathan Sarr from the Training Factor, and we'd like to welcome you to our first webinar in a series throughout the course of this year. So it's very exciting for all of us to be able to kick this program off, and we've put a lot of work and effort into the content and the delivery and the topics in order to help benefit you in all the various aspects of your job that you have to carry out each and every day. Okay, well, let's get this going today. Again, welcome everyone who's just logging in now. We look forward to Cynthia just in a moment handling our presentation today, 4 secrets to improve employee performance. So just to kind of introduce Cynthia, just so you know a little bit about her, Cynthia Samuels has been in the multifamily industry for over 17 years now. 6 years on the owner-manager side and 11 years on the industry partner side. She is the CEO of Inspired Multifamily Services, where she works with property management professionals in the areas of marketing, training, coaching, systems implementations, and sales performance. She has served in the Atlanta Apartment Association leadership group as well as participated in other apartment associations in the Southeast. So we're looking forward to her presentation today. There's going to be some polls throughout the webinar today for you to give us your feedback on it, and then a survey at the end just for your overall feedback on the content and topics that you'd like to see in the future from us here at the Training Factor. So, Cynthia, we're going to kick it over to you now.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jonathan. It's hard to believe 17 years and still counting. It's a great industry, and we all have made a lot of friends throughout that time. But I want to just echo what Jonathan said. Thank you for attending our call. We are really delighted to have you here and appreciate you carving out this window of time for us to be together. Please, if possible, I would encourage you to shut off your distractions if you can. Close your office door. Shut off your email. I know that's hard for us to do. Silence any of your other phones that might be sitting around. We just encourage you to do that because we want you to be able to listen and think about the things that we're going to be covering today. We have a lot of ground to cover. 4 key points that we're going to be working through today. So let's get started. If we were all in a physical room instead of a virtual room together, I would ask you the same question I have posed to many of my clients. How many of you want to have a mediocre 2012 and 2013? Now, usually my clients look at me with blank stares and a wondering look in their eyes, and I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. What is she talking about? Well, the reason I ask this question is to prompt you to consider how you're going to have the banner 2012 at your property or your property management company that you want. When I work with property management professionals like yourself, we found that the most successful professionals are those that have a solid plan. They know how they're going to achieve the results that they want. And that's why we're here, isn't it? To talk about managing the performance of your team as well as managing our own performance. When I find a concept that I think is effective, I do research on it, probably just like you do. So let's take a moment to look at the history of performance management concepts. Now be patient with me, it's just one slide. So the phrase performance management was coined in the 1970s by a clinical psychologist, Aubrey Daniels. At that time, Aubrey used it to describe technology and the importance of managing behavior and, more importantly, the result of that behavior. He later associated the same approach to the interactions of people, whether they're in a formal or an informal setting. He discovered that with proper training, management teams can mold the conditions of the workplace in order to measure the true success of the business. And as we all know, the true success is usually defined from a financial standing on the company or the property. So that's just a little history about it. The concept is, gosh, the 1970s don't seem that far back, but it's not that young of a concept. When you think about an effective performance management program, it will allow you to manage your property. It will allow you to manage your property management employee team and their performance. And that is even managing your property itself and your employees. It will allow you to give you or your property management company the competitive edge that will allow you to surpass your competition. And that's really what we're all trying to do. We want to be better than the apartment community down the street. So how does performance management work? Well, we need to clearly identify the job's purpose as well as the duties that are associated with it. For instance, the leasing professional's responsibilities and jobs or the property management's jobs. It's important to educate your team on the skills that they need to perform their duties. Determine the goals and how to measure the outcome. Goals are really key in a performance management system. We need to rank the job priority. Now, you know as well as I do that we all have a lot more responsibilities on our plate than we can fulfill in a day. So we really it's important to rank the priority of the different tasks. We need to set a standard of performance for the critical aspects of the position. We need to be able to discuss employee performance and let them know how they're doing. Very key. We should really do this on at least a quarterly basis throughout the performance management program. And it's also important to keep track of the performance and keep really good records. If necessary, based on the records that we're keeping, we can create an improvement plan to improve our employees' performance. So, as you were promised, there are 4 secrets to an effective performance management plan. So let's take a look at what those are. We start with employee assessments. That's always the key, isn't it, to any improvement plan. Then we set goals. We monitor our results. And one of the most important aspects is that we have to motivate our team. That's a critical factor of success of any plan, isn't it? After all, we're only as successful as our team is, right? Conducting a formal performance management program provides a number of valuable functions for my property management clients. It allows them to translate their mission statement into specific achievable goals. Now, we all have mission statements from our company, but sometimes we miss the steps of how are we going to get there? How are we going to make that mission statement a reality? It usually allows them to manage performance rather than react to it. So they have the ability to be proactive when it comes to team performance rather than reactive. It also allows them to provide written acknowledgement of completed work. Now, I don't know about you, but let's say at the end of budget period when we finally have that budget finished, it's great when our supervisor comes up and says, wow, you finished the budget, that's great. Oh, are budgets ever really finished? I'm not sure about that. Maybe you can tell me more about that later. A performance management system also allows my clients to discuss skill and career development. So they have the ability to, as as they're providing a path for their team, they have the ability to keep that out in front of them and to define the criteria that they need in order to move themselves forward. And one of the things that they tell me is that it helps them reduce stress. We are looking for ways to reduce stress, aren't we? And it reduces stress for their supervisors, for their property managers, their regionals, and some of their VPs because, again, they're managing rather than reacting. And if I'm a leasing professional and I'm participating in this, it really will help me reduce my stress because what is expected of me will be clearly outlined. So if you recall, the first step is our assessment step. There are 3 conventional types of assessments used in most businesses. Today we're going to touch briefly on 3 of them together. Let's take a look at each of these assessments. We have the pre-screening assessment or the quiz, the more involved 360-degree assessment, which we're going to talk about a little more later, as well as the knowledge or skill set test. Now, before we go ahead and move forward, I think that Jonathan has a poll for us.
Yeah, we've got a couple polls we're going to put out. Renee's going to put them up on the screen for us now. And great point, Cynthia. I like how you put the history out there of where performance started and really how it just begins that connection all the way down the line to where we're at today. So here's our first poll, everyone. Does your property management company perform annual employee reviews? So we'll give you about a minute. If everyone can just quickly make their selection, then we've got a second poll we're going to pop up on the screen. Very good. Hey, that's encouraging. Look at that. 80% of our listeners today have annual employee reviews. That's fantastic. Kudos to your company. And I'm sure that those are helpful for not only for you, but for your property management company to kind of see where you're at and help you along your career path. So that's interesting. Okay, our second poll. Does your property management company have an online tool for pre-screening the competencies of candidates? Good question. So we'll give you a minute to make your selections there. And I think that's what you're going to talk about next, aren't you, Cynthia? A little bit about the pre-screening and.
Yes, I sure am.
Yeah, pretty important part of the process. Okay, we'll give you a couple more seconds, folks. Thanks for being here, everyone, today. You know, it's great to see so many here for our first webinar. We really appreciate your participation. Let's see what kind of results we get here. Again, very intriguing percentage. 62 to 38. So that's an interesting number. All right, Cynthia, I'll kind of kick it off back to you. Let's hear what your thoughts are on pre-screening candidates and how that is part of performance.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the polls. Pre-screening assessments are usually something that are done before you hire them. And I think a careful pre-screening assessment can drastically decrease the number of inappropriate individuals that end up on our team, right? Now, I'm not really speaking about drug and criminal screening here. We all understand the importance of doing that. I'm more concerned here about applicants that lack a skill that's necessary to do the job that we hire them for. During the interview process, our candidates tell us a lot of things that they can do, and they may or may not be qualified to really do those. But if we do a pre-screening assessment for prospective employees, we really find out the proof behind the words. Pre-screening assessments can be purchased from various web-based companies that I found, but I haven't found any that are really specific to our industry. You have another option by building a customized pre-screening survey into your learning management system. So then you can design excuse me, a customized set of questions for each of your job descriptions the way you want to define them and what the qualifications are. Everyone on this call, I know, is aware of the high percentage of turnover in our industry. So finding the right person for an open position is not only critical, but it's just plain old good business, isn't it? Let's move on to the next assessment. Now this may be a new concept to you. It's a 360-degree feedback. As its name implies, this type of assessment takes a comprehensive look at your team's performance individually. But unlike the annual format assessment, the annual review format assessment, a 360 is a process in which employees receive confidential, anonymous feedback from the people who work around them. This typically includes your associates, managers, peers, and if they're in a supervisory position, direct reports. Well, how does it work, you might ask? An anonymous online feedback form asks questions that cover a broad range of workplace competencies. The persons receiving the feedback, they also complete the self-rating, and it includes the same survey questions as the others received. For instance, for the property manager, the survey should be completed by their regional manager, several peers, and their direct reports, and of course themselves. And sometimes, depending on what your philosophy is, it could include resident feedback from some of your surveys or comment cards. So what does it measure? It measures behaviors and competencies. It also, the 360 also provides feedback on how others perceive us. So I don't know about you, but I have found that sometimes what I think I'm sending or how I think I'm reacting with people, they are not perceiving me the same way I think they are. So it's important to have that kind of feedback. A 360 also addresses skills such as listening, for instance, active listening, planning, and goal setting for your leadership. The standard 360 survey that I have found focuses on subjective areas such as teamwork, character, and leadership effectiveness. By the way, 360 should never be used to measure objective things such as attendance, leasing quotas, and so on. That's the purpose of the annual review, right? The 360 is an involved process, and we could certainly spend several hours discussing the logistics of this. But right now, let's move on to the final assessment type. And this is something we're all pretty familiar with. The type of assessment is generally in the format of a quiz. Whether it's online or offline, it allows the employer to ask questions on topics relating to the business, usually in the form of multiple choice or true-false questions is what I have found. Utilizing an online testing engine will streamline your process, though, and allow you to roll that up into a performance system. Of course, there are many other ways to assess employee effectiveness, but the most important thing is that we do it, right? Okay, well, before we move on, I think Jonathan has a quick one-question poll for us. Jonathan?
Yeah, Renee, you can put that up for us. And while I'm on, I forgot to mention this to everyone earlier. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to put them into the chat box, because as we come to the end of the presentation, if there's anything that you'd like us to answer for you, we'll be more than happy to do that. So that's an option for you as well. We'd love to hear your feedback or any questions that you have. So here's our poll. Do you have a clear understanding of your property management company's strategic goals? So we'll just give you a moment there to answer that for us. Okay. Again, interesting answers. It's nice to see 62% have that understanding. They know exactly where their company is going and where it's taking them. That little bit of uncertainty, though, I think so, 38%. That's also very intriguing. So it kind of teaches us some lessons overall on really, I guess, communication. So very good poll. Thank you for those questions. That's good feedback for us.
Okay, so we discussed our first secret, which was assessments. Our second secret are goals. When we first begin an engagement with a new property management client, one of the first items on our agenda are to talk about goals. What are the goals of the property management company? What is your team's role in meeting these goals? And, of course, what is your own goal? As I talk with my clients and other property management professionals that I have an opportunity to chat with, I have discovered that many people feel like they're kind of adrift in their career. They work really hard. Who doesn't work hard in this industry, right? Aren't we all running Mach 10 with our hair on fire? But they frequently don't seem to feel like they're getting anywhere and what they're doing is worthwhile. We found that the key reason that they feel this way is that they really haven't spent enough time thinking about what they want in their life and in their career and how they can impact the goals of their company. And that's really their genius work. They need to take time out to do something that no one else can do for them. So think about this. You wouldn't set off on a major journey or vacation, for instance, with no real idea of where you're going, would you? I mean, you'd know where you're going. So you have to set a destination on where you want to go in your career and with your goals of your company. Employees and our team members who clearly understand their own goals and how they relate to the goals set by your property management company are much more engaged in their work. Once each of your team members sees how they can make a direct contribution to your property management company's success, wow, they typically begin to focus to work smarter and more efficiently. And this usually creates a boost in productivity, which naturally leads to increased NOI at the property level and increased profitability at the company level. And that makes all of our owners and managers very happy, doesn't it? Well, let's dig into goals a little bit. When we begin the goal setting process, we need to consider three elements. What do we want to accomplish? What is each associate's role or part in completing this goal? We want to make SMART goals. Now, SMART is an acronym, and I'll touch a little bit more on that in just a second. SMART goals make for smart property management companies. Many managers and VPs just don't have the time that they wish they had to work with their team to set clear goals together. Our goals are usually, in our industry, our goals are usually general, aren't they? We need to increase NOI. We need to increase income. We need to increase occupancy. We need to decrease expenses. Well, we're going to look more at SMART goals in a moment, but we want to take those goals and make them SMART goals. And it's really important to allow your team to develop the goals with you. By developing the SMART goals with your subordinates, you will win their buy-in. And you'll win their cooperation much quicker. And they'll really be enthusiastic about working on it because they feel a part of it. They have a buy-in. It's not something that's just been instructed them to do. I think it really does make a difference. So let's talk about SMART goals. Since the beginning of 2012, I've been speaking about setting SMART goals to everyone on my blog, in LinkedIn, on my Facebook page, because it is so critical. When I learned about SMART goals several years ago, I was so excited because it gave me a framework to define my own personal and professional goals. I like structure, and this created a structure for me that allowed me to really stay focused on setting my goals and then achieving my goals. So for the purpose of our time together, let's focus on setting effective goals for our subordinates, for our team members, and our property management company. For goals to be effective, they must serve both the needs of your property management company and the individual team members. Many times as leadership, we set goals, but we fail to reach them. Has that ever happened to you? I know it certainly has happened to me. And this usually indicates that the wrong goals are being chosen, or there is no goal-setting process in place. SMART goals will improve the chances of achieving your company, personal, business, and professional goals. So the acronym SMART provides the framework to develop well-defined goals. SMART goals provide clarity upfront to your team, who will ultimately be evaluated against those goals. So let's take a look at the framework in a little more detail. Are we setting the right goals for our team? SMART goals have been found to be a very effective method of motivating employees to perform at peak levels. And in this market, we need everyone to perform at peak levels, don't we? So let's go through the steps here. Specific goals let people know exactly what's expected of them with no room for misinterpretation or confusion. Specific goals should be able to answer the following questions. Who is responsible? When must this be done? What is to be accomplished? Which requirements or constraints are involved? Where is this to be completed? Why is this so important and beneficial? Measurable. M for measurable. When setting goals, we must also set specific criteria for measuring the progress against the goals, so we know how we're doing. This gives the folks on your team a way to stay on track, to aim for target dates, and reach milestones that will serve as ongoing motivation. A is for achievable. I feel like I'm back in grade school. Setting overly aggressive goals that are truly unattainable serve to demotivate rather than motivate your team. I don't know about you, but I certainly have been given overly aggressive goals that I knew I couldn't attain those. And it was demotivating. Has that ever happened to you? By setting ambitious yet realistic goals, you'll inspire, no pun intended, you'll inspire your team to give their very best, to leverage their skills and talents to achieve them. R is for relevant. Your team must be able to see how a specific goal is relevant to them and the work that they do every day. This will also help them to understand their connection to your property management company's objective. Seeing the whole picture is really important. The last letter, T, in our acronym stands for timely or time-framed. To be most effective, goals need to be structured around a specific time period, which provides a sense of urgency. This usually motivates your team to begin working on their goals as soon as possible. Now, if anyone has any questions about the SMART goals, if you just put them in the chat, Jonathan will be watching that for us, and he'll be able to, we'll be able to address those for you.
Cynthia, we do have a question. How can we pre-measure to understand the level of the goal that will motivate the employee?
That's a great question. Motivation is one of the key, finding the individual's motivation is a real key to making performance management programs successful. And we're going to touch on motivation and how it relates to individuals in number 4. So if you'll hang in there with me, hopefully we'll be able to answer that question.
Okay, and one more. Jessica wants to know what did the WHERE stand for?
Well, that's a good question too, Jessica. Where could mean the at the property. Where could mean something going on at an apartment association event. So if a where is appropriate when you're defining your specific criteria, then you can look at that. Is it the property? In most cases in our industry, I would say most of it's probably property specific, but maybe the where is at the corporate office. Maybe the where is doing some outreach marketing, going to some of the other businesses around. That's a great question.
That's it for now.
Okay, thank you, Renee. So secret number 3, monitoring results. Ongoing monitoring really provides the opportunity for us to check how well our team is progressing toward their goals, and it allows us to make adjustments so that we stay on track. Identifying problems that may cause the goal to be derailed is really critical, and we need to find those problems really early. By monitoring continually, unacceptable performance can be identified at any time during the monitoring period, and assistance can be provided to help remediate that performance, rather than waiting till the end of the period when summary rating levels are assigned. We don't want to wait until the end of our year or our quarter before we look and see how we're doing. It's imperative that we stay up with this in a really quick and easily discernible way. So I can't repeat this enough. To effectively monitor, you must collect the data. Let me say that again. To effectively monitor your performance management system, you must collect the data. To effectively help your team improve their performance, you must collect the data. A performance management system will allow you to achieve greater proficiency through the use of the tools which allow you to monitor the performance of your team. You can monitor the performance both collectively and individually. It should also allow you to coalesce all of the data into one source so that you can view a range of scores. Excuse me. A properly designed learning and performance management system will also allow your management or your leadership to view the performance of each tier of supervisors. So this dashboard is a dashboard from the Training Factor Learning and Performance Management System. So Jonathan, I'm sure that this is familiar to you and Renee. And as you can see, it gives us a really quick snapshot as a supervisor of what's going on within our training and our performance system. That's really key. To be able to proactively manage and not react, we need the ability to have a quick snapshot to see where we need to focus and where we don't need to even put attention. In our industry, I think you'll agree with me, we conduct telephone and internet mystery shops. We hire third-party companies to conduct on-site mystery shops. We listen to and we score leasing calls. Many property management companies offer their team performance bonuses based on these, right? If all of these performance results were rolled up into one web-based system, then we, as property management professionals, can stay on top of our leading and lagging performance indicators. If we see a leading indicator begin to slip below the anticipated level, we can take action quickly. So when we're designing how we're going to monitor our results, we need to design our key performance indicators, or KPI. The KPI is based on the result that you're trying to achieve. Once you have those developed, then you'll be able to identify what the leading indicators are. Leading indicators give you a picture of what is likely to happen in the future unless the course is altered. Leading indicators should also enable you to take preemptive action to improve your chances of achieving your strategic goals before it gets derailed. For instance, the graph on the screen, we see that 2 of our leading indicators are slipping, and the achievement of our strategic goals are in jeopardy here. With all the data in one place, I can spot the areas that I need to focus my attention on in order to get us back on track. So if we're looking at this as from a regional manager perspective, or a vice president perspective, or a property manager's perspective, it's important for us to be able to see our overall quick results. With this particular performance system from the Training Factor, this client has set automatic benchmarks to have the Training Factor system provision training to remediate the individual skill gaps. So the training director doesn't have to do anything. The criteria is already set within the system. When it's automatic like that, when an automatic remedial step can be taken, that gives you an idea of a really quick turnaround. Again, if we're looking to implement an effective performance management system, collecting the data is in an easy-to-use web-based solution like the Training Factor system is really vital. Otherwise, we're trying to maintain spreadsheets for all of our indicators, and then we're trying to consolidate them. A very time-consuming project, wouldn't you agree? Well, let's move on to secret number 4. The last one, but by no means is it the least important. This may address your question a bit, this section. I'm positive that everyone on this webinar understands the importance of motivating your team members. Without effective motivation, our goal is not likely to be accomplished, is it? If you can't motivate your team, you won't have a successful experience at work. I see all of your heads shaking in agreement. So let's pause for a minute here to take our last poll. Jonathan, can you and Renee help us?
Yep, that's our last poll for today, folks. And it is associated with this secret number 4, motivating the team. So the question is, what is your basic motivator, and how can your company best motivate you?
I think mine would be achievement, Jonathan. What about yours?
Oh, definitely. 9% all per financial, and the most was career growth. So that's an excellent poll. Thank you for your feedback.
Wow, see, that doesn't surprise me in this industry. That is awesome. And if your motivator is career growth, then getting plugged into a performance management system is going to really help you fly off and down the road you're looking to go toward. All right, so let's talk about motivating our team. There are many ways, as you know, to motivate your team. Each of the ways listed on the screen are very important. As we look down the list, let's focus on just a few. First, I'd like to focus on leading by example, which I believe is one of the most effective ways to motivate anybody. I remember a time when I was young and my parents would always say to me, "Don't do as I say," or "Do as I say, don't do as I do." But what did I do? I continued to mirror their behavior and did not do what they told me to do, but I did what they did. And I think that's the case with many of us. Do you remember your mom or dad telling you to do as I say, not as I do? Anyway, so keep this in mind as you lead your team through performance management process throughout your career or through any process, just on a day-to-day basis as your team watches you, just like you watched your parents growing up. The second important element, in my opinion, is to educate your team so that they can deliver on the results that you're looking for. Inform them quickly when they're not meeting your expectation. Providing timely feedback is monumental to keeping your team motivated. Of course, we all love reward, praise, and recognition, and celebrating reinforces your confidence in them and shows them that you're invested in their success. Can you think back now on a time when you experienced that? It is very motivating, isn't it? In my mind, if you think of equations, motivation, effective motivation equals performance. Motivation is the responsibility of every single leader. There's not one single method for motivating your team. People have different personal motives, and leaders must meet the needs of the individuals in order to motivate the whole. Every employee needs to be motivated in order for performance management to be successful. While employees must take some responsibility for motivating themselves, management can help motivate and develop each person on their team. Practicing basic motivational techniques will improve performance as it boosts morale. And quite frankly, if morale is an issue in your property management company or at your property, then take a look at how you can motivate each individual. We're all different, and we're all motivated and moved by different reasons. Finding out what your team members' own motivation keys are will help you mold the incentives to drive his or her performance. This is so the internal motivator is really part of their DNA. It's just the way they're wired. They're motivated by these factors even subconsciously. It's just who they are. Take a look at that. Put that in the back of your mind as you work to think about your team and how you have an opportunity to get to know them a little better. Just as we can identify internal motivators, there are also key components to motivating your team members for success in the workplace. Here are a few typical motivators for you to consider when you contemplate setting a motivation plan for each member of your team. The techniques to identify individual motivators are pretty self-explanatory, don't you think? We have to observe the individuals and we have on our team, and we have to respond to see who responds to the different motivators. And we need to make a mental note. When you test a motivator, keep good records of who is successful and who is not. And the best way to get to know an individual's motivator is to get to know them, right? After all, we're an industry that's highly focused on relationship. And that's the best way to identify a personal motivator. Conversations about activities outside of work will be a good indicator for you. Listen when you're chatting with your team. Listen with a purpose. And surveys. You can have your team fill out a survey that identifies exactly what motivates them. Then there's no guesswork. Surveys will also show you a level of engagement of the employees that you're surveying. Any questions? All right. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together, and I just want you to think about this. If you look at this slide, you'll see there's a circle. And truly, performance success for your team is a continuous improvement process. You see the circle never stops. It just keeps going. When it's applied well and consistently, you'll receive the results and have that banner 2012 that you and your property management company and your team are looking to achieve. In the end, we all win. Everybody wins. It's a win-win for everyone. Wow, we really appreciate you joining us today as we focused on the 4 secrets of performance management together. I really want to thank the Training Factor for sponsoring this webinar. Jonathan and Renee, thank you so much for sponsoring this. I'm going to turn the meeting over to you, Jonathan.
Very good, Cynthia. Thank you so much for your hard work on that today. Excellent information. We look forward to up-and-coming webinars. We really appreciate you helping us understand the 4 secrets to improve employee performance. I want to thank all of our attendees today. We really appreciate you supporting us in our first webinar. When you close out of the meeting today, there's going to be a quick little survey, and please give us your honest feedback. We're going to do everything we can as we roll this program out to improve wherever you tell us that you see we need some improvement on. Our overall goal, though, is to continue to support the multifamily industry and to provide education on every level. So be sure to follow us at our Facebook page, on our corporate blog. And if you have any personal feedback that you'd like to share with me, anything that goes above and beyond what the survey says, feel free to email me at jonathan@thetrainingfactor.com, and my name is spelled JONATHAN, at thetrainingfactor.com. So any and all feedback is appreciated. Again, Cynthia, thank you so much for your hard work on this presentation today. Thank you to Renee for being our moderator. And make sure you check out our website and register for our next webinar that will be coming up next month. Thank you, guys. Have a great day, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Take care.